Physically, one of the hardest ones was when we had the obstacle course sequence. We have to go over a big wall. All of the other guys use my back to get over, and then they leave me. I literally had a boot-shaped bruise on my back. Hi, I'm Demi Moore, and this is the timeline of my career.
Nikki.
I love you too. Prior to being cast in Blame It on Rio, living in West Hollywood with my mother, I had a neighbor, which was Nastasia Kinski. She spoke English really well, but didn't feel confident with how she read English. And so as we became friends, she asked me to read scripts aloud to her. It kind of defined my decision to want to pursue acting. The first time I saw her, I felt like she was just the most beautiful creature I had ever seen. Not just from her external beauty, but just in how comfortable she was in her own skin. And I didn't know what it was, but I wanted what she had. Right before my 19th birthday, I got cast in General Hospital, and that gave me a regular job and a regular paycheck. I had to ask permission because I auditioned and got the role in Blame It on Rio to play Michael Caine's daughter.
Who can remember everyone she goes out with?
There's more than one.
Well, there's the dancer at the club we were at, the singer too.
She's seeing all of them?
But you know how it is, Dad. When you're hot, you're hot.
Obviously, I'm a teenager. It was super exciting, big studio movie, shooting on location in an exotic place I had never been. The interesting thing is, literally, that is not a movie that could be made today. This is kind of, I don't want to say a dirty old man's fantasy, but kind of, because it's two men going on vacation with their teenage daughters, and the one teenage daughter having a mad kind of crush on the other father, and, you know, the hijinks that, you know, occurs.
I have been needing to talk to you.
Sounds like one of our infamous conversations is coming. Like when you met my parents and decided I was adopted. Remember that?
I still think your mother's hiding something from you.
Yeah.
Kevin, I'm curious. You know all those nights we stayed up talking? How come you never made a pass at me?
I was actually there for the casting of another movie. It may have even been a John Hughes movie. I may have been driving a motorcycle. Joel Schumacher saw me through the window. He sent his assistant to ask what was my name, and that was it. I was then called back in to meet with Joel Schumacher to audition for Jules.
They're bailing me out again.
When are you two gonna get a new car? One that truly expresses your lifestyle as the perfect couple?
Not everyone got recruited out of school into international banking money back.
Well, besides, my mom and dad gave me that car. I think I was conceived in the backseat.
It was an exciting time for young actors, and I remember being on this big sound stage, there being, you know, the craft service, and all of us just kind of saying hello. Some of them already knew each other because they had done Breakfast Club, particularly I think some of the boys. Nobody wanted to be called a brat. It wasn't trendy or popular. It felt like just that it diminished us or that we were less serious. I think that in a way it spurred me to focus and just keep moving forward, but just not be attached to it. Almost as if that wasn't going to define me.
Oh no, I hope it wasn't a masterpiece.
Well, it's not now.
Can I help?
Yeah. Get them wet. Now just let the clay slide between your fingers.
On paper, we're looking at a director who's only done comedy and broad comedy.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
This conceptually was a comedy, a thriller, and a romance. And I thought, okay, this could be amazing, or it could really be a disaster. And that was really exciting. The subject matter, I felt, was really moving and had the potential of really opening a pathway to a cultural shift in how we, you know, related to death and loss, but in a way that was also entertaining and really kind of checked all the boxes.
saved your life.
Shit. You scared me to death. How did you do that?
It's better than seeing this gorgeous body splattered all over the place. Look out.
He had gone in New York on location to look at the apartment building that was going to be our apartment, that in fact they rebuilt on a stage. What I felt immediately upon meeting him was that beautiful combination of virility and strength, but gentility and sweetness. And again, you know, I was 25. We were still really young and early in our careers, and I think we were both just really excited.
It's like I think about you every minute. It's like I can still feel you.
My childhood didn't lend itself to having a lot of places of being vulnerable, and vulnerable even feeling like I had the room to cry. And so when I looked at the emotional demand of this, it definitely brought up a lot of fear of would I be able to deliver what it needed. But again, those are the things that make you really want to do something. It gave me time to also indirectly look at processing loss. I think I had already experienced the loss of my father, but not really experienced it in a way that also was healing and uplifting.
Never. All right, he would never do that. His concern was for me and the kids. He didn't want to lose me.
Yeah, but for some reason you don't seem to be trusting him anymore.
I just wanted to keep him out of it. Keep the peace.
If I look at it at that time, it was kind of the beginning of what we know today as independent films. You know, look, I was stepping into something I still didn't know what I was doing. And so I was just kind of learning. It was juicy, character-driven material, and something that was a smaller budget, a little edgier, and not something I feel like I had a chance to kind of step into. It just felt like a wonderful opportunity.
You know, you gotta learn to control your temper. It's not good how you fly off the handle.
Whoa. Ain't like I just fly off the handle for no good reason.
Yeah, but you gotta learn to talk, not yell. I mean, you don't want to be intimidating everybody.
Well, what was interesting is we obviously were a married couple, but we were not playing a married couple in it. I don't know if it's that I asked him to read the script just to see what he thought. And then he said, I'd love to play this guy. It was kind of one of those things that just rolled, it's not like we really planned it. I think that it allowed for a lot of freedom and safety. In watching him, I learned that he had such an ease within himself to go to these bigger places that I feel like I had always been a lot more kind of contained. Just watching his spontaneity and that there was a very expansiveness to how he worked, which was different seeing it working with him versus just, say, going and watching him on a set.
Done something wrong again, haven't I?
I was just wondering why two guys have been locked up since this morning while their lawyer's outside hitting a ball.
We need to practice.
That wasn't funny.
It's a little funny.
I mean, it was such good writing. The dialogue was so rich, Aaron, because he came out of theater, like there was a real value to wanting to get the words as they were, which was different, I think, than other things I had had.
You're the luckiest man in the world. There is nothing on this earth sexier, believe me, gentlemen, than a woman that you have to salute in the morning.
That was an intense scene because he's really attacking me as a woman in a way that was undercutting and diminishing, but a powerful moment in revealing of his character, my character. I was working with great actors, with great material, with a great director. So there was a certain efficiency. We didn't have to labor, we didn't have to struggle to find. It just had to do with just showing up, being prepared, and doing your job.
Suppose I were to offer you $1 million for one night with your wife.
He'd tell you to go to hell.
I didn't hear him.
I tell you to go to hell.
The heart of it was the relationship between this couple and really this bigger question of, is there a price for everything? Knowing that there were a lot of love scenes, the challenge was that it was done not just tasteful, but appropriate to the relationship and feeling protective of not wanting it to be exploitive, but in service to the story. I just came up with this idea that instead of like going, we can have this much nipple, we can have this much, butt, to me, that I made it still feel so like I would then be showing up to do scenes, but be in my head and be actually more hyper-focused versus being free to really be in the emotional exchange. And so I just ask, for what I feel like should be a more standard way, which is, let's be true collaborators. Let's go into this. I hear what you're looking for. I'm gonna trust you, and I'm gonna ask you to trust me. And so after you cut it together, let me take a look. And if there's anything that's maybe a little bit too much, and in the end, I didn't ask for anything. What's interesting is in the movie, if you really go and look, it isn't extremely nude. Well, I don't wanna say the things that Adrian Lyne was saying on the sidelines, but I was glad that I was given the 411 that he talks over the scenes, that he was wringing his hands with excitement and enthusiasm and sweating and and I don't even think he's conscious. He's just looking at the monitor and he's like, oh, yes, grab his, and okay. And the first take, I was so shocked, like, oh my God, what is happening here? And then I realized everyone was so focused on him that they weren't even noticing us. So I was like, okay, that feels a little more relaxed, but definitely is unlike any experience I've ever had. It's also so interesting. I mean, he is very voyeuristic in his films and very sexual. But I do think that there is a real sensitivity and a beauty.
All right, fall in. Dress it up. Ready for your med check.
On my finger. What's your name? O'Neill. All right, follow my finger, O'Neill. Can I see your fingertips? Cold? Yeah. Way to gut it out, Lieutenant.
I went down for the modified SEAL training. They had gear in my room. The boots that they had, the smallest pair they could get, were way too big for me. By the first quarter of the day, I had massive blisters. We were getting ready to have to do this training in freezing cold water in full gear. And I looked around at the 40 guys that were there. It hit me without much thought. I'm playing an officer. If I, right now, as me, don't show up and suit up and hang in there, then when we go to shoot, it'll never be the same. And so I just said, no, I think you should just give me some tape. I'll tape my feet up and carry on. And they did some sneaky things. Like, they never called me by my name. They always called me by my character name. They set me up to be late. They did a lot of things to really put me through it.
Fuck you. I'm so glad we agreed.
Every day, for the most part, was aspects of it being very physically demanding. You don't do this if you don't know what you're getting yourself into. One of the hardest ones was when we had the obstacle course sequence where we have to go over a big wall. And I let all of the other guys use my back to get over, and then they leave me. I would say, just on a personal level, I literally had a boot-shaped bruise on my back as when we walked away. Because the stuntmen were great. They hopped over really with ease, but the actors weren't quite as agile. It was already almost killed months before anybody had ever even seen it. I don't know all the reasons, but maybe that it was a combination of becoming the highest paid actress, which was an amazing thing, not just for me, but for all women. It coming off of striptease, it seemed as if I had betrayed women with striptease and I was betraying men with G.I. Jane. And I think those two things really became almost like a media drive to go, well, does she really deserve it? And maybe it being just ahead of its time. In some ways, I feel like I was targeted and shamed It kind of blurred it from really being seen just for what it was. They didn't allow it to kind of stand on its own. I think the film really holds up. I hear it a lot from people. I think that Ridley made a really thoughtful, intelligent film that really tackled the subject matter.
Hello, angels.
I was really unsure. In a certain way, I felt like, oh gosh, I haven't been focused on working at all. It was almost 6 years at that point. I had to be kind of talked into it a little bit, encouraged, not talked into it, but encouraged. Like, I really enjoyed the first one. I loved the whole thing. Obviously, I grew up with the original Charlie's Angels. I was a kid and loved kind of the tone and what they had done. I don't know if I'd really, outside of Disclosure, ever played a villain. Definitely Drew was like giving me, super encouragement. They had really written it for me. And I was definitely a little nervous, but sometimes that's when you know, like if you start to feel like you're a little afraid, then that's sometimes a good sign.
What time is it?
2:15.
Fuck me. Fuck me. And I'm guessing by the fact that you two haven't said anything that the math checks out.
Look, we'd need some time to go over this, but Mr. Sullivan here seems like he knows what he's doing. So it would appear we have a problem. I mean, first of all, it was an incredible cast because it also was so contained in just the one space. It was almost more like a theater ensemble. Again, really strong writing, smart, interesting, and also just a very different character for me than I'd had a chance to kind of step in and play.
Your point was passed on. I need you to know that.
Eric.
It's okay. I understand. Believe me. There was nothing else you could have done.
I guess. At the time, it didn't seem like there was much of a choice.
You know, when somebody is on a certain side, in this case, putting the company first, when you are making those choices, you're existing with blinders on, only seeing the right of it, not the wrong of it. Because if you really looked at the wrong of it, you wouldn't be doing it. You can't play a character where you're in judgment of them. You have to be in alignment with them. Even though I don't relate to somebody who's making that kind of choice, I think you just have to find the ways in which you can connect to what the emotional thread is.
People always ask for something new. It's inevitable. At 50, well, it stops.
It was such a unique, out-of-the-box way of delving into this subject matter, of aging, that pursuit of perfection, the placing value and validation on the external aspects as opposed to valuing our insides. It was a beautiful way to set the story by being an actress and it having that heightened pressure that's added on those of us who are in this industry. But for me, the most fascinating part was not what was being done to her, but it's what she does to herself.
Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? Younger, more beautiful, more perfect. One single injection unlocks your DNA and will release another version of yourself. This is the substance.
Corley took something that is generally an inner dialogue of such harshness and negativity that I think is relatable not just to women, but to all of us as human beings, that we all are subject to moments of despair, of feeling rejected, discarded, that we don't belong. The battle with oneself is really, though, at the heart of it. You know, the battle with the aspects that are ego-driven, the tendencies of narcissism, and the need to be loved. I mean, at the root of it, it's all like this desire to be loved. And, you know, for me, this was also a character that I knew stepping in was not about being glamorous or looking great, or, that to commit to this was about going to the depths of those places, not just physically, but emotionally, that were very vulnerable and raw. And again, like Ghost, I really read this because it starts as one thing, conceptually moves into something that no one could ever expect. It's, pushes you out of your comfort zone, watching it. It's opening a door to a cultural shift and how we collectively as a society have kind of seen women as they get older having less of a place or less value. For me, what I've always pushed against is when things have just not made sense to me. Like, why shouldn't a pregnant woman also feel sexy? Who says a woman isn't desirable and sexy at whatever age? Why shouldn't a woman be paid as much as a man if they're doing equal work? I've never been 61 3/4 before. This is my first time. So I'm trying to just live it to the best version of myself I can possibly be.